Jordan Hayes walked through the airport, holding a cup of coffee in one hand and his ticket in the other. The terminal was crowded, filled with the usual noise of rolling suitcases, flight announcements, and people rushing in every direction. It had been a long week for him, meetings, late nights, and deadlines. But now he was finally going home to Atlanta. He looked at his ticket again and smiled. For the first time in his life, he had been upgraded to first class. His company had given him the seat as a reward for his hard work. Jordan wasn't used to special treatment. He grew up in a modest neighborhood, raised by his mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. Nothing had ever come easy. So sitting in first class felt like a small dream come true. When he reached his gate, boarding had already begun. He stepped into line, waited his turn, and handed over his boarding pass with a polite nod. The flight attendant smiled and welcomed him on board. As he walked toward his seat at the front, he noticed the plush leather chairs, the wide legroom, and the quiet, calm atmosphere. He sat down by the window, stretched his legs, and took a deep breath. It felt good finally, a moment to relax, but just as he was about to close his eyes, he heard something from the back of the plane. A baby was crying loudly. At first he tried to ignore it. Babies cry, he thought. It'll stop. But the crying didn't stop. It grew louder, more intense. And then came the frustrated sighs from other passengers, and the annoyed voices starting to rise. Jordan opened his eyes and leaned forward to glance back. That's when he saw her. A young woman, clearly exhausted, standing in the aisle near the economy seats. She had a baby in her arms who was red-faced and wailing, and a diaper bag falling off her shoulder. She looked around, trying to calm the baby while also trying not to disturb the people around her. Some passengers were giving her sharp looks. Others were whispering to each other. No one offered help. Jordan kept watching. Something about the woman made him sit up. He could see the panic in her eyes, the way she held her baby close, whispering soft words while wiping tears from her own face. She looked like she was barely holding it together. He didn't know her story, but he didn't need to. He knew what it felt like to be alone in a hard moment, to feel like the whole world was staring, but no one was helping. Without thinking too much, Jordan stood up. He didn't do it to get attention. He didn't do it for praise. He did it because it felt right. He picked up his carry-on bag and walked down the narrow aisle toward the woman. As he approached, she looked up at him, confused and surprised. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Would you like to switch seats?" "I'm in first class." Her eyes widened. What?" He gave her a warm smile. "You and your baby could use the space. It's quieter up there, more room, you'll be more comfortable." The woman blinked, clearly not expecting kindness from a stranger. "No, I can't do that. That's your seat." Jordan shook his head. "It's okay, I insist." The flight attendant nearby looked unsure but then stepped in to help. "If you're sure, sir?" "I'm sure," Jordan said. A few passengers who had been watching began to smile. Others looked surprised. As the woman hesitated, holding her baby tightly, Jordan gave her a nod that said it was okay. Slowly, she allowed the flight attendant to guide her toward his seat. Jordan turned and walked to the back of the plane. His new seat was a tight middle seat between 2 strangers, next to the bathroom, but he didn't mind. As he buckled in, he felt something inside him settle, a quiet peace. He didn't know the woman's name. He didn't know what she was going through, but he had done one small thing that made her day a little better. Up front, the woman sank into the first-class seat. She looked down at her baby, who was finally beginning to calm down. She adjusted the blanket and rested her head back. Letting out a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. For the first time that day, she felt seen, not judged. Not ignored, just helped. She looked back once toward the economy cabin, trying to find the man who gave up his seat. She couldn't see him anymore, but she remembered his calm eyes and his soft smile. She whispered a quiet, "Thank you." Even though he couldn't hear it. As the plane took off and climbed into the sky, Jordan closed his eyes in the back row, tired but content. For him, it had just been a small decision. For her, it had meant the world. And neither of them knew it yet. But that one moment would change both of their lives in a way neither could have imagined. The flight was now in the air, moving smoothly through the clouds. Most passengers had settled into their seats, some sleeping, others reading or watching movies. But up in first class, something had changed. Emily sat in the seat that once belonged to the kind stranger. She was still holding her baby, who had finally stopped crying and was now resting quietly on her chest. Emily looked around the cabin. The space was calm and quiet. The chair was soft and wide, giving her room to stretch. There was a warm blanket and even a small pillow for support. The flight attendant had already brought her a glass of water and checked to make sure she was comfortable. For the first time in many hours, she felt safe. She took a deep breath and looked down at her baby's tiny face. A tear rolled down her cheek, not from sadness this time, but from relief. Just 30 minutes ago, she had felt like everything was falling apart. Now, thanks to a stranger's kindness, she could breathe again. She didn't even know the man's name. All she remembered was his calm voice, the way he had smiled when he offered his seat, and the gentle look in his eyes. She kept thinking about that moment. He had no reason to help her. They didn't know each other. And yet, he gave her something she couldn't ask for, a little kindness in a hard time. Emily leaned back and closed her eyes, letting her thoughts wander. The last few months had been hard. Her husband had passed away in a car accident only 4 months ago. Since then, life had become a blur of sadness, confusion, and loneliness. Taking care of a baby on her own was overwhelming. She had decided to move back in with her parents in Atlanta, hoping they could help her get back on her feet. But even booking the flight had been a challenge. She had almost canceled it. Traveling with a baby scared her, and she worried about being judged or embarrassed. And then it happened. The moment when everything seemed to go wrong, her baby crying, people staring, her feeling completely lost, and someone stepped in and changed the entire day. In the back of the plane, Jordan sat quietly between two passengers. It wasn't comfortable. The seat was small, and the man next to him had already fallen asleep and leaned onto his shoulder. But Jordan didn't complain. He pulled out his headphones and tried to listen to music, though his thoughts kept going back to the woman and her baby. He didn't even know why he had done it so quickly. He had waited years to fly first class. It was supposed to be a special reward for all the work he had done. But when he saw her crying, struggling with her child, none of that mattered. Something inside him had told him to move. Maybe it was because he had seen his own mother in her. Growing up, Jordan had watched his mother raise 3 kids by herself. He remembered the tired look in her eyes, the times they had to take the bus across town with grocery bags in hand, and how she never complained. She had taught him that being strong didn't mean being loud. It meant being kind even when things were hard. So when he saw that woman on the plane, he couldn't just sit there and do nothing. Time passed slowly during the flight. After a while, Jordan got up to stretch his legs. He walked toward the back of the plane and then made his way quietly to the front to use the restroom. On his way back, he glanced toward first class. He saw her again. She was looking out the window, gently rocking her baby. Her face looked softer now. She looked calmer, even peaceful. For a second, their eyes met. She gave him a small smile. He smiled back, nodded politely, and returned to his seat. Emily watched him walk back down the aisle. She wanted to say thank you again, but didn't know how to put it into words. She had thanked him before, but somehow it didn't feel like enough. She thought about writing him a note. But how would she even give it to him? She didn't know his seat number or his name. The flight continued without trouble. Eventually, the baby woke up but didn't cry. Emily fed him and gently rocked him back to sleep. It felt like a small victory. She finally started to feel like maybe she could do this. Maybe she could survive this new life she was living. Toward the end of the flight, as the plane began its descent, Emily started to gather her things. She wrapped her baby in a warm blanket and packed the diaper bag more carefully this time. She felt stronger now. She was still tired, still heartbroken, but she was no longer falling apart. And it was all because of a small moment of kindness. After the plane landed and reached the gate, people began to stand up, eager to get off. Emily stayed seated, waiting for the crowd to thin. She wanted to say goodbye to the man who had helped her. She hoped he hadn't already slipped away in the rush. Jordan stood at the back, waiting for the aisle to clear before grabbing his bag. As he slowly moved forward with the line, he saw her standing by the exit, holding her baby and looking around. She spotted him and smiled brightly. "You didn't leave," she said, almost in surprise. "I try not to push," Jordan replied, with a smile. "Crowds aren't really my thing," Emily chuckled softly. "I just wanted to say thank you again, really, what you did." "I can't even explain how much it meant to me," Jordan shrugged gently. "You don't have to. I'm glad it helped." She looked at him, her eyes full of quiet emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without your help today." "Well," he said kindly, "you would have made it through. You're stronger than you think." They stood there for a moment, not quite sure what else to say. But there was a feeling in the air of something quiet and warm, like a connection had been formed without needing many words. "I'm Emily," she said, offering her hand. "Jordan," he replied, shaking it gently. She looked down at her baby. "This little one is Noah," Jordan smiled. "Nice to meet you, Noah." As they walked into the terminal together, Emily paused near a coffee shop. "Can I at least buy you a cup of coffee before we go?" Jordan looked surprised but nodded. "Sure, why not?" They sat by the window, sipping coffee while Noah slept peacefully in her arms. What began as a random act of kindness was starting to feel like the beginning of something more. The airport cafe was small and quiet, tucked near the corner of the terminal. People walked by with suitcases, but inside the world seemed slower. Jordan sat across from Emily at a small table near the window. The soft hum of conversation filled the air, but neither of them spoke much at first. They were both still a little surprised that they were sitting there together. Emily held her cup of tea with one hand while the other gently rocked Noah's stroller. The baby had fallen asleep again, and for the first time all day she didn't feel nervous or alone. She looked up at Jordan and smiled. "I didn't expect to talk to anyone today," she said softly. Jordan smiled back. "Me either. But I'm glad we did." There was a calm feeling between them, comfortable, like they had known each other longer than just a few hours. Emily took a deep breath and looked outside the window where planes were taking off in the distance. "I was really scared on that flight," she admitted. "I thought I was bothering everyone. I thought I'd be judged." "Then you showed up?" Jordan nodded. "I've seen that look before on my mom's face. She used to carry all three of us kids alone when we traveled. People would stare, but no one ever offered help, so I thought maybe I should." Emily's eyes softened. "You reminded me that kindness still exists. I didn't know how much I needed that today." Jordan sipped his coffee and leaned back slightly. "You're doing better than you think, Emily, I can tell." Emily gave a small laugh. "I've been telling myself that, but most days I don't believe it." They talked for almost an hour, about life, about work, about family. Emily shared how she had lost her husband in an accident a few months earlier. She didn't go into detail, and Jordan didn't ask. He just listened, nodding, understanding the silence between her words. "I thought moving back with my parents might help," she said. "They're good people, but this wasn't the life I imagined." Jordan looked at her not with pity but with quiet respect. "Sometimes the path changes, but it doesn't mean it's the end. Just a different start." Emily smiled at that. "That's a nice way to put it," he chuckled. "I try to sound wise sometimes. Comes with being the oldest of three." They both laughed gently. Jordan then shared bits of his own life, his job as a project manager, how he worked his way through college, and how his mother taught him never to ignore people in need. "I used to feel invisible in crowds," he said. "So now, when I see someone struggling, I try to notice. That's all." Emily looked down at Noah, then back at Jordan. "Well, I noticed you, and I won't forget what you did." Soon, an announcement echoed through the terminal. Emily's connecting bus to her parents' town would leave in 30 minutes. She sighed and began gathering her things. "I should get going," she said. Jordan stood too. "Can I walk you to the station?" She looked up, surprised, but nodded. "I'd like that. They walked slowly through the terminal. Noah stirred a little but stayed mostly asleep. People passed them in a blur, but they moved at their own pace. At the bus station, the driver was loading luggage. Emily turned to Jordan, unsure how to say goodbye. "I know this might sound strange," she said, "but today, it felt like I met someone who was supposed to cross my path." Jordan smiled warmly. "Sometimes the best people show up when you least expect them." She hesitated. "Do you think we could stay in touch? I'd really like to." He pulled out his phone. "Absolutely." They exchanged numbers, and with a final smile, she boarded the bus with Noah. Jordan watched from the sidewalk as the bus pulled away, feeling something unfamiliar stir in his chest, like he had just been part of something important. In the days that followed, they began texting. Just small messages at first, made it home safely. "Thank you again, Jordan." "Hope your week's going well, Emily. Give Noah a little high five from me." Those little messages turned into longer conversations. At night, when Emily sat by the crib watching Noah sleep, she'd find comfort in Jordan's thoughtful words. And when Jordan came home from work, tired and worn, reading Emily's updates gave him peace. Weeks passed, and they started calling each other too. Sometimes they talked about their day. Other times they talked about dreams, fears, and memories. Jordan learned that Emily had once been an art teacher and loved painting. She had stopped after the accident, but he encouraged her to try again. "You don't have to be perfect," he said once. "Just let it help you heal." Emily found herself smiling more, laughing more. She even pulled out her old paints one afternoon while Noah napped. For the first time in months, she let color back into her life. Jordan, too, found something changing inside him. His routine life had always been quiet, but now he looked forward to hearing from Emily. Her voice brought warmth to his evenings. Her strength impressed him. Her laughter stayed with him after their calls ended. One Saturday, Emily messaged him, "We're going to the park later. It's Noah's first real outing since we got here. Want to join us?" Jordan didn't even hesitate. He drove 2 hours that afternoon just to see them. When he arrived, Emily was sitting on a blanket under a big oak tree, with Noah in her arms and a smile on her face that made Jordan's heart skip. She waved at him like they were old friends. Maybe they were. They spent the day talking, watching Noah try to crawl on the grass, and sharing snacks. At one point, Jordan lifted the baby up and spun him gently in the air. Noah laughed bright. Innocent and full of joy, Emily watched them with quiet amazement. Something inside her shifted. It was like a piece of her that had been locked away was slowly opening again. As the sun began to set, she packed up the stroller while Jordan folded the blanket. She looked at him as they walked back to the car. "You didn't have to come today," she said softly. Jordan shrugged with a smile. "I wanted to. I'm glad you did," she said. "I think Noah is too." They both laughed. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, gentle and true. A connection that had started in an airport aisle was slowly growing into something neither of them had expected, but both of them needed. They weren't calling it love yet, not out loud. But maybe, just maybe, it had already begun. A few more weeks passed after their day at the park. The weather was changing slowly, warmer days with soft winds and trees beginning to show green again. Emily and Jordan kept in touch almost every day. What started as a connection on an airplane had now become something much deeper. Neither of them had planned for this. But life has a strange way of putting people together at the right time. Emily was starting to smile more often. She had gotten used to being back at her parents' home. She had a small room upstairs with Noah's crib beside her bed. Life was still hard sometimes, late nights with the baby, moments where she missed her husband, and days when she felt tired for no clear reason, but she no longer felt alone. Jordan was part of her new normal. Every night, after Noah fell asleep, Emily would talk to Jordan. Sometimes they had video calls. Other times it was just voice messages back and forth. They shared details about their day, the funny little things, the hard parts, and the good moments too. One evening, Emily was walking Noah around the block in his stroller. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted in warm orange and pink. She called Jordan and put him on speaker. I forgot how peaceful walks can be, she said, pushing the stroller slowly. Sounds like the perfect time of day, Jordan replied. Wish I could be there. You will be, she said softly. Soon. Jordan paused for a moment. Emily, would it be okay if I visited again this weekend? Maybe we could spend more time together. Just take things slow, she smiled. I'd really like that. That Saturday, Jordan arrived earlier than usual. He brought a small gift for Noah, a soft, blue stuffed elephant, and a bouquet of daisies for Emily. I wasn't sure if you liked flowers, he said nervously. Emily smiled wide. I love them. Thank you. They spent the whole afternoon. Together, they took Noah to a local lake, sat under a tree, and talked for hours. Emily told Jordan about her dreams of painting again, maybe even teaching part-time one day. Jordan encouraged her, telling her that her talent shouldn't be hidden. You have so much to give, Emily, he said. The world needs your colors again, she laughed. That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me in a long time. Later, back at her parents' house, they sat on the porch as Noah napped inside. The air was cool, but pleasant. Fireflies danced in the yard, and the stars were slowly appearing. I feel like I've known you forever, Emily whispered. Jordan looked at her, then reached out and gently took her hand. So do I? They sat like that, not needing to say anything else. For the first time since her life had changed so painfully, Emily felt something new. Hope. The next morning, Emily's mother noticed something. You seem lighter today, she said as they sat at the kitchen table. Emily smiled shyly. I think I'm starting to feel happy again. Her mother reached over and gently touched her hand. He's a good man. I can see it in his eyes, Emily nodded. He's been like a quiet light in the dark. Over the next few weeks, Jordan visited often. He helped with small things, bringing groceries, holding Noah so Emily could rest, even fixing a loose door in the backyard. But more than anything, he brought laughter and calm. One day, they took Noah to a local fair. There were colorful booths, music in the air, and the smell of popcorn and sweet treats everywhere. Jordan carried Noah in a baby carrier, walking proudly beside Emily. They looked like a family, something Emily hadn't thought she'd feel again so soon. At the fair, they played games, ate cotton candy, and even took a photo together at a small photo booth. In the picture, Jordan held Noah, and Emily stood close, her smile bright and real. She later placed that photo on her nightstand. It made her heart warm every time she saw it. Still, both of them were careful. Emily was still healing, and Jordan respected her space. He never pushed, never rushed anything. He knew her heart had been broken, and he didn't want to fix it. He just wanted to be beside her as it healed. One night, after putting Noah to bed, Emily sat beside Jordan on the porch again. The moon was bright, and the world was quiet. I never thought I'd feel this way again, she said softly. Jordan turned to her. What way? Like I could love someone again. Like I could trust someone with my heart. Jordan didn't speak right away. He looked at her with gentle eyes and reached out to brush a piece of hair from her face. You don't have to rush it. Emily, I'm here for as long as you need me to be. Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from gratitude. I think I already love you, she whispered, almost afraid to say it out loud. Jordan smiled, his own eyes wet. I think I've loved you since the moment I saw you crying on that plane. They both laughed softly, and in that moment, everything felt right. Two people who had met by chance, one tired, broken, and holding a crying baby. The other calm, kind, and willing to give up his comfort, were now sitting side by side, connected in a way that words couldn't fully describe. From that night on, things started to feel more natural between them. They weren't just two people helping each other through tough days. They were something more. Jordan slowly became part of Emily and Noah's life. He never tried to replace anyone. Instead, he created his own space, one filled with patience, laughter, and quiet support. Noah smiled every time Jordan walked in the door. Emily found herself painting again, little by little, and even started teaching art to kids in the neighborhood. Once a week, her parents saw the change in her and supported it fully. They liked Jordan, and more importantly, they saw how much he respected their daughter. One morning, as Emily stood in the kitchen making breakfast, Jordan walked in with a small package. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it," he said. Smiling dot inside was a simple gold necklace with a tiny paintbrush charm. "It reminded me of you," he said. "Strong, creative, and full of color." Emily blinked away tears. She walked over and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. He held her for a long time. Neither of them said much, but they didn't need to. The feeling in the room said enough. What had started as a simple act of kindness had grown into something they both needed. They had walked through pain and found something beautiful on the other side, not perfect, not rushed, but real and honest. And as they stood there in the kitchen, with baby Noah giggling in his high chair, it felt like a new chapter had begun, one filled with love, patience, and second chances. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks slowly became months. Emily's life, once full of uncertainty and quiet sadness, had started to feel whole again. It was not perfect. There were still hard days, moments where she missed the life she once had, but something had changed inside her. She was no longer standing in the ruins of her past. She was building something new. And Jordan had become an important part of that. By now, their bond had grown strong. They had taken time to get to know each other deeply. Jordan had met Emily's extended family during a Sunday lunch at her parents' home, and everyone could see the calm respect and steady care in his eyes when he looked at Emily and Noah. Her father, a quiet man, had shaken Jordan's hand firmly. "That day, I don't say much," he told Jordan, "but I notice how you treat my daughter. Thank you for that." Jordan had simply nodded. She deserves the best. Meanwhile, Emily had visited Jordan's apartment in the city too. She admired how organized and simple his life was. He had books stacked neatly, framed photos of his siblings on the wall, and a small shelf filled with souvenirs from his travels. He had even created a little corner with art supplies just for Emily in case she wanted to paint there one day. One sunny morning, Jordan invited Emily and Noah to visit a nearby botanical garden. It was a beautiful place filled with tall green trees, colorful flowers, and quiet walking paths. Noah, now crawling confidently and trying to take small steps, was full of energy. He laughed as he reached for butterflies and waddled through the grass. Emily and Jordan sat on a bench, watching him play under the warm sun. "I never thought I'd see joy like this again," Emily said, her eyes following Noah. Jordan reached over and held her hand gently. "You brought that joy back into both your lives." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat like that for a long time, just enjoying the moment. No pressure, no questions. Just peace, but something had been on Jordan's mind for weeks now. He had grown to love Emily deeply, her strength, her kindness, her laughter, and even her quiet moments. And though he hadn't rushed anything, he was ready to take a new step. Still, he wanted to do it the right way. That evening, Jordan called Emily's father. They talked for a while, and then Jordan asked him for permission to speak with Emily about something important the next weekend. He invited Emily and Noah for a small picnic at the same park where they had first spent a full day together. Emily didn't suspect anything. She was just happy to spend time outdoors with the two people who made her smile every day. The picnic was simple: a soft blanket, sandwiches, fruit, and juice. Noah crawled around, laughing and playing with his stuffed elephant while Jordan and Emily talked. After a while, Jordan stood up and reached into his bag. He pulled out a small box and knelt down on one knee in front of Emily. Her eyes widened, and she froze. "Emily," he began, his voice soft but sure, "I never expected to find someone like you. You've shown me what real strength looks like, what love can be when it's patient and honest." She covered her mouth, already tearing up. "I love you," he continued. "I love Noah like he's my own. And if you'll let me, I want to be there for both of you. Not just today, not just tomorrow, but for all the days after that. Will you marry me?" Emily stared at him, tears falling down her cheeks. Noah had crawled over to sit beside her, tugging gently at her dress. Giggling, she looked down at her son, then back at Jordan, the man who had given up his comfort to help a stranger, and ended up becoming the heart of her world. "Yes," she whispered, then nodded. "Yes, I love you too." Jordan stood up and hugged her tightly. They stayed like that for a long moment, with the sun setting behind them, the sky glowing golden orange. It was quiet, peaceful, and filled with love. The wedding wasn't big or fancy. Emily wanted something simple and heartfelt. A few months later, in a small garden surrounded by close family and friends, they stood beneath an arch of white flowers and promised to care for each other. Come what may, Emily wore a simple white dress with soft lace sleeves. Her hair was tied up with small flowers woven in. Jordan stood beside her, dressed in a navy suit, holding her hands and smiling like he had never smiled before. Noah, wearing a tiny bow tie, was the star of the ceremony. He giggled when everyone clapped, and during the vows he even shouted happily, causing the whole crowd to laugh warmly. After the ceremony, they all gathered under fairy lights for dinner and dancing. Emily's mother cried during the first dance, and her father gave a short but heartfelt toast. To love after loss, he said, raising his glass. And to the man who brought light back into my daughter's life. From that day on, Emily and Jordan lived together as a family. They built a home filled with warmth and laughter. Emily returned to teaching art at a local school, while Jordan continued his work but made more time for family. Noah grew up surrounded by love. He had a father figure who read him stories, carried him on his shoulders, and cheered at every little step he took. And every year, on the anniversary of their airplane meeting, Jordan would take Emily and Noah on a small trip. Sometimes by train, sometimes by car, but always to somewhere peaceful where they could enjoy being together. It became a tradition. They would sit and remember the day they met, the crying baby, the kind stranger, the seat that changed everything. Funny how life works, Jordan would say, holding her hand, and Emily would smile and reply, it was never just a seat, it was the beginning of everything. Their story, once filled with pain and uncertainty, had transformed into one of love, healing, and hope. A black man who gave up his first-class seat for a tired mother didn't just offer comfort, he offered a new beginning, not because he expected anything in return, not because he was trying to impress, but because in a world that often moves too fast, he chose to stop and care, and that one small choice, it changed all their lives forever.